Have you ever imagined what the day will be like when you look back and realize that your life is coming to an end? What will you see when you revisit your memories, pride in the decisions you made, or regret for everything you didn't do? This is a question most people avoid. They continue living as if they were immortal, wasting time on trivial worries, fleeting distractions, and fears that, in the end, will have no meaning. But what if there was a way to live so that, on your last day, you could look back on your journey without regrets? This is not an empty philosophical question. On the contrary, it is a question that guided the mind of one of the most powerful and wise men in history, Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome and one of the greatest representatives of Stoicism. He ruled over a vast empire, faced betrayals, led armies in bloody battles, made decisions that affected millions of lives, and witnessed the deaths of people close to him. Even so, amidst the chaos, he found a fundamental principle: to live in such a way that at the end of your life, there are no regrets. Unlike many other rulers who became lost in ego, vanity, or fear of failure, Marcus Aurelius not only governed, but also deeply reflected on the human condition. He knew that, regardless of power or wealth, in the end, every human being faces the same destiny: death. And it is in that moment that all illusions vanish. Money, titles, external achievements, none of this matters if you have not lived according to what you truly believe. But how can one live this way? How can you avoid reaching the end of your life consumed by regrets? What did Marcus Aurelius discover that can serve as a guide for us centuries later? The answers are in his book, Meditations, a work written not for others but for himself, as a daily reminder of how a man should live. In it, Marcus Aurelius recorded teachings that helped him face challenges without being consumed by fear or remorse. And these teachings can be applied by anyone who desires to find peace, purpose, and meaning in life. In this video, we will explore the most valuable lessons he left, and by the end, you will understand that you don't need to be an emperor to live without regrets. You just need to learn to think like one. Now, if you are ready to discover the principles that can transform your life, stay with me, because the next few minutes may change the way you approach every choice, every moment, and every challenge life throws at you. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world during his time, was fully aware that time was his most valuable resource. Unlike gold, fame, or power, time is the one thing that once spent can never be recovered. It doesn't matter if you are an emperor or a simple peasant. Everyone is given a limited amount of time, and with every passing second, that clock keeps ticking down. How many times have you found yourself postponing something important? How many hours have you wasted on empty distractions, arguing about irrelevant things, or worrying about other people's opinions? Now think, if today were your last day, would you regret how you spent your time? In his writings, Marcus Aurelius made it clear that the greatest waste of life is not the lack of opportunities, but the misuse of time. In Meditations, he warns us about the illusion that most people have, thinking there will always be a tomorrow, that there will always be a second chance to start something important. But the truth is, life offers no guarantees. Time is running out right now as you are listening to these words. But how did he deal with this reality? How could a man who ruled an empire, who faced wars and unimaginable challenges, make decisions without regrets? The first principle is conscious prioritization. Marcus Aurelius knew he could not afford to waste his time on trivialities. He carefully selected where he would place his attention and energy, making sure his actions were aligned with his values. In other words, he focused on what truly mattered. This meant he didn't worry about court gossip, intrigues, or the relentless pursuit of pleasure and wealth. He understood that all of that was fleeting, and the time spent on those distractions was time stolen from what truly had value. The answer lies in two fundamental principles of Stoicism that he applied daily. The second principle is acceptance of impermanence. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that his existence was brief. This helped him live each moment to the fullest. He would write to himself phrases like, "Do not waste what is left of your life worrying about others, unless it serves a greater purpose. You are losing the chance to do something meaningful." He knew that trivial worries and the fear of judgment were mere distractions that kept people from what truly mattered. So what does this mean for you? It means that if you want to live without regrets, you need to start treating time as the most valuable asset you have. You need to constantly ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now aligned with the life I want to build? Or am I just reacting to the distractions around me? If there's something you've always wanted to do but keep putting off, the truth is there's no perfect moment. There is only now. The time you have today will not come back tomorrow. And if you don't start using it consciously, one day you will look back and realize that life passed by while you were busy with things that don't matter. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that the key to a life without regrets is not trying to extend the time we have, but making wise use of it. Because the greatest tragedy is not death, but reaching the end of life and realizing you never truly lived. How many times have you blamed someone for your problems? How many times have you waited for something or someone to come and change your life? Maybe a boss who values you, a government that solves everything, a partner who understands you effortlessly, or even a stroke of luck that finally puts you on the right path. If you think this way, Marcus Aurelius would say you are making a fatal mistake. From an early age, he learned that life offers no guarantees. He did not choose to be emperor. On the contrary, his rise to the throne was the result of circumstances beyond his control. But instead of complaining or playing the victim, he accepted his responsibility and committed to living according to his principles. For Marcus Aurelius, the greatest mistake a human being can make is to surrender control of their own life to others. In Meditations, he writes, "If you are unhappy with your life, don't blame the gods or men. The problem lies within you." He knew that expecting the world to be fair or that people would act according to our expectations was a recipe for frustration. The only real power we have is over our own actions, over how we choose to react to what happens around us. And this is where Marcus Aurelius' greatest lesson comes in. You are the only one responsible for your life. If you don't like your situation, it's up to you to change it. If something went wrong, it's up to you to learn from it and move on. If you want a better future, it's up to you to build that future. This doesn't mean that life will be easy. Marcus Aurelius himself faced extreme challenges. He ruled Rome during one of the greatest crises in history, dealt with betrayals from close people, saw friends and family die, faced wars, plagues, and conspiracies against his life. But he never allowed these difficulties to make him a bitter or passive man. He didn't ask, "Why is this happening to me?" but rather, "What can I do about it?" He believed that life is not about what happens to you, but about how you respond to it. And this is a mindset that few adopt. Most people see themselves as victims, waiting for something or someone to rescue them, but this waiting could last a lifetime. So ask yourself, who is in control of your life? Are you actively making decisions or just reacting to what happens? Are you building the life you want or just accepting the circumstances? The reality is harsh, but liberating. No one will come to save you. There will be no perfect moment. There will be no savior. You can blame others. You can blame your childhood, the government, the system, society. But in the end, the only person who can change your life is you. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that taking this responsibility is not a burden, but a gift. Because when you stop waiting for something external to solve your life, you finally realize that you have all the power you need to change it. How many things have you not done because you were afraid of what others would think? How many decisions have you postponed because someone might judge you? The fear of others' opinions is one of the greatest thieves of time and happiness that exists. Marcus Aurelius, despite being the most powerful man in the world in his time, knew he could never please everyone. As emperor, he was constantly judged. Some saw him as a just and wise ruler. Others criticized him for not being more aggressive in politics, or for not playing the power games of the Roman elite. But do you know what he did with those criticisms? He simply ignored them. In Meditations, he wrote, "Do not waste time thinking about what others do, say, or think. Focus on yourself and what you can control." He understood that the opinions of others were volatile, often based on fleeting emotions, prejudices, and distorted views of reality. But what does this have to do with regret? Everything. Most people spend their lives trying to meet the expectations of others. They choose careers they don't love because it's what their family expects. They stay in toxic relationships because they fear judgment. They avoid taking risks because someone might criticize them if they fail. But what happens when these people reach the end of their lives? They realize they spent too much time trying to please others and forgot to live according to what they truly wanted. And here is the brutal truth Marcus Aurelius understood. The people you fear today, those whose opinions paralyze you, will one day die too. Their words, their criticisms, their judgments, all of that will disappear over time. 100 years from now, no one will remember if you made mistakes, if you made unpopular decisions, or if you followed a different path than the majority. What matters is that you live according to your principles. Marcus Aurelius teaches us that there is a clear line between what we can and cannot control. The opinions of others are beyond our control. What we can control is how we respond to them. Instead of worrying about what others think, we should focus on what really matters, staying true to ourselves. So ask yourself, how many things in your life were decided by you, and how many were decided by the fear of judgment? If you keep living to please others, there will come a time when you realize you didn't live for yourself, and that will be a regret from which you can never escape. The choice is yours: continue being a prisoner of others' opinions, or finally break free and live according to what true matters to you. Life is full of moments that are beyond our control. Suffering, loss, failure, injustices, these are all part of the human experience. But most people spend a great deal of time resisting these truths, fighting against what has already happened or fearing what may come. Marcus Aurelius, however, saw reality in a completely different way. For him, trying to avoid the inevitable was a waste of energy. In Meditations, he wrote, "What happens to you was destined to happen from the beginning of time. Accept it and move on." This Stoic mindset does not mean resignation, but understanding. When you accept that there are things you cannot change, you stop wasting your life lamenting them. This is especially true for three fundamental aspects of existence: suffering, failure, and death. First, suffering, pain, whether physical or emotional, is something everyone faces. But there is a difference between suffering and suffering unnecessarily. The inevitable suffering, the loss of a loved one, illness, a stroke of bad luck, cannot be erased. But the additional suffering, the one created by our resistance to what has happened, that can be avoided. Marcus Aurelius said that pain is just an impression created by the mind, and it is up to us to decide whether we will accept it or amplify it. Next, failure. For many people, the fear of failure is one of the biggest blocks in life. They don't try something new because they fear failure. But Marcus Aurelius knew that failing is part of the process. He wrote, "You fell? Then get up and try again. Just don't lament the fall." Failure is not the end, but a stage on the path to learning. Those who do not accept this truth live paralyzed by fear, and in the end, they regret not the failures, but the opportunities they missed. Finally, death. This is the most repeated theme in Meditations, and perhaps the most powerful. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminds us that we are all heading to the same destination. Kings, slaves, generals, philosophers, no one escapes death. He writes, "Death smiles at us all. All we can do is smile back." But why does thinking about death help us live without regrets? Because when you accept your mortality, you begin to live. You realize that you don't have time to waste on pointless arguments, futile worries, or senseless procrastination. You understand that each day is a gift, and wasting it is an irreversible mistake. The acceptance of the inevitable is not weakness, but strength. It's not giving up, but understanding what is under your control and focusing on what truly matters. So ask yourself, how many times in your life have you resisted what was already beyond your control? How much time have you wasted lamenting something you couldn't change? Marcus Aurelius teaches us that peace comes when we stop fighting against reality. When we accept what cannot be changed, we free ourselves to focus on what we can truly transform. And this is one of the greatest keys to living without regrets. Most people spend their entire lives chasing pleasure, believing that happiness lies in money, success, or the approval of others. They want comfort, they want to avoid any kind of pain, and they want instant gratification. But if this were truly the path to a full life, why do so many people who achieve wealth, fame, and status still feel empty? Marcus Aurelius viewed life differently. For him, what really matters is not what you have, but how you act. The relentless pursuit of pleasure can lead to regret, but living a life based on virtue brings peace and purpose. But what does it mean to live with virtue? In Stoicism, it has nothing to do with moralism or rules imposed by others. For Marcus Aurelius, living with virtue means acting according to your highest principles, regardless of the circumstances. In Meditations, he writes, "Be like the rock against which the waves crash, and which remains firm, while the foam around it dissolves." This means that instead of pursuing pleasure for the sake of pleasure, we should strive to be just, courageous, and disciplined. It means that our actions matter more than our momentary desires. But how can this perspective change your journey? First, it frees you from the slavery of impulses. When you put virtue above pleasure, you are no longer a hostage to fleeting temptations. You stop seeking external validation and begin acting according to what you truly believe. If you want to build something meaningful, you won't quit just because it's difficult or because there's something more pleasurable to do in the moment. Second, this mindset brings a deep sense of purpose. Marcus Aurelius understood that material pleasures quickly fade, but living a life with purpose leaves a lasting impact. He wrote, "Stop struggling like a puppet reacting to every impulse. Be the master of yourself." And finally, living this way prevents regret, because at the end of life, no one regrets having lived with integrity, but many regret wasting time chasing empty pleasures. So ask yourself this question: what am I prioritizing in my life? Am I choosing the easy path, the one of instant gratification, or am I building something that truly matters? Marcus Aurelius teaches us that pleasure is fleeting, but virtue is eternal. And if you want to live without regrets, you need to stop seeking only what gives you pleasure and start living according to what truly makes sense to you. We live in an era where happiness is constantly associated with excess. Excess money, excess status, excess material goods. Society makes us believe that the more we accumulate, the happier we will be. But is that really true? If it were, the wealthiest and most powerful would also be the most fulfilled. However, history shows us that many of them ended their lives in deep dissatisfaction, always wanting more, always feeling that something was missing. Marcus Aurelius was different. He was the emperor of the greatest empire in the world, had access to everything any human could desire: gold, luxury, comfort, but still, he believed that happiness lay in simplicity. In Meditations, he wrote, "Very little is needed to live a happy life. It is all within you in the way you think." He understood that true contentment did not come from the relentless pursuit of more, but from the ability to find satisfaction in the essentials. But why is this so important? Because when you learn to live with simplicity, you free yourself. You are no longer a slave to the endless desires of the mind. You are not consumed by envy or the anxiety of always wanting something new. You begin to see reality more clearly and appreciate what truly matters. Marcus Aurelius knew that a simple life was not synonymous with poverty or deprivation, but rather with clarity. He believed that the relentless pursuit of luxury and pleasures led to distraction, wasted time, and, in the end, regret. He saw many Romans of the elite getting lost on this path, people who lived only for the next banquet, the next conquest, the next fortune. But in the moment of death, those same people realized they had wasted the only thing they truly had, the present. And here is the great lesson: simplicity does not mean giving up everything, but rather eliminating what is unnecessary. If you learn to find contentment in what you already have, you will never feel that your life has been wasted. So, ask yourself, do I really need everything I am chasing? Am I focused on the essentials, or am I being distracted by fleeting desires? Marcus Aurelius teaches us that happiness does not come from excess, but from the ability to live simply and with purpose. If the most powerful man in the world understood this, perhaps it's time for us to understand it too. Talking about death makes a lot of people uncomfortable. We avoid thinking about it, pretend we are immortal, and go through our days as if we have infinite time. But the truth, the one no one likes to face, is simple. You will die. I will die. We all will die. For most people, this idea is frightening, but for Marcus Aurelius, it was liberating. In Meditations, he writes, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think." What did he mean by this? That by constantly remembering our mortality, we free ourselves from distractions and begin to live more meaningfully. Pause for a moment and think. If you knew today was your last day, what would you do differently? Would you continue wasting time on insignificant arguments? Would you keep procrastinating what you've always wanted to do? Would you continue letting fear paralyze you? Most people only realize what really matters when it's too late. They reach the end of their lives full of regrets, not for what they did, but for what they didn't do. And that's the true weight of death. Not the end of existence, but the feeling that you never truly lived. Marcus Aurelius faced death head on. He knew that no power, no wealth, no glory could prevent the inevitable. He saw emperors before him being worshipped in life and forgotten within a few generations. He saw soldiers give their lives in battle without their names being remembered. He knew that, in the end, we are all just dust in time. But instead of seeing this as a reason for despair, he saw it as a reminder to act now. If you truly understood that your life could end at any moment, would you continue wasting your time on what doesn't matter? Would you continue being trapped by other people's opinions? Would you keep postponing happiness? Marcus Aurelius teaches us that accepting death doesn't make us weak, it makes us courageous. Because when you understand that your time is limited, you begin to live with more intention. You stop waiting for the perfect moment and start doing what truly matters. So ask yourself, if today were my last day, would I be satisfied with the way I lived? If the answer is no, then something needs to change. Death is not the end. It is the greatest reminder that life is now. And the sooner you accept that, the fewer regrets you'll have when your time comes. What will remain of you when your life comes to an end? What will you have built? What will you have left behind? Most people go through life without thinking about this. They wake up, work, follow their routine, and believe there's plenty of time to think about the future. But time doesn't wait, and when we realize that life is coming to an end, there are only two possibilities: look back with pride or with regret. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. He knew that everything he did, every decision he made, every word he spoke, was building something greater than himself. But his concept of legacy was different from what many imagine. For him, legacy was not about statues, monuments, or military conquests. His true legacy was in the way he lived, the principles he stood by, and the wisdom he left for future generations. He wrote in Meditations, "What we do now echoes in eternity." But what does this mean for you? It means that your actions today are not just isolated moments. They are part of a bigger story. It means that every choice you make, every effort, every attitude is shaping the impact you will have on the world. And what defines a true legacy? First, the people you touch. Marcus Aurelius knew that his influence as an emperor wasn't just about power, but about how he guided others by example. You may not rule an empire, but you can inspire your family, friends, and even strangers with your actions. The way you treat people, how you help them, how you share what you know, all of this leaves a lasting impact. Second, the ideas you spread. The words of Marcus Aurelius have survived for almost 2,000 years because they contain something powerful, universal truths about life, death, and the meaning of existence. You may not write a book, but you can influence the world around you with your ideas, your ethics, your worldview. And finally, the example you set. In the end, people won't remember what you said, but how you lived. Were you someone who followed your values, who faced challenges with courage, who did what was right, even when no one was watching? The reality is that we all leave a legacy, whether we realize it or not. The only question is, will it be a legacy of regret or one of pride? Marcus Aurelius teaches us that life is too short to be lived without purpose. If you want to look back and feel that you've done something worthwhile, start now. Because in the end, the only thing that truly remains after we're gone is the impact we had on the world and the people around us. Throughout this video, we've explored the teachings of Marcus Aurelius, one of the most powerful men in history, who even at the height of the most influential empire in the world, understood something that many people never realize. What truly matters in life is not what you have, but how you live. We saw how he viewed time as his most precious asset, how he took full responsibility for his life without waiting for someone to come save him. We learned that worrying about others' opinions is a waste of time, that accepting the inevitable, including suffering and death, frees us from fear and regret. He showed us that happiness lies in simplicity, that living with virtue is more important than chasing fleeting pleasures, and that the reminder of death can motivate us to live with more intensity. Finally, he reminded us that our true legacy is not in the wealth or titles we accumulate, but in the impact we leave on the people and the world around us. Now, the big question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Because reflecting on these principles is important, but only putting them into practice can change your life. So here's the challenge. Choose one of the lessons you heard today and start applying it from now on. If it's about time, stop postponing what really matters. If it's worrying about what others think, make an important decision without the fear of judgment. If it's accepting death, use that reminder to value the present more. But in the sum of small daily decisions that set you on the right path. And if any of these ideas made sense to you, I want to know, which of these teachings do you most need to apply in your life right now? Leave your comment and share your reflection. If this video helped you, consider subscribing to the channel and sharing this content with someone who needs to hear it. Because in the end, what Marcus Aurelius teaches us is that time is short, life is fleeting, and the only thing that truly matters is how we choose to live it. So what will your choice be?